Hi there, welcome. My name's Simon Gervin and welcome to Launching Agile Projects as we board the Inception deck to investigate another artifact in a bit more detail. This is another of the artifacts that doesn't feature in the original Inception deck. And again, it's another artifact that you can get a lot of value from on its own, running a workshop just to see where your team is. And it's one that came about because what I was recognizing was that Agile is quite hard for lots of people. And that to me is one of the paradoxes of Agile. It's almost a victim of its own simplicity. It's really simple to understand. The Scrum guide is just 17, 18 pages. Scrum itself has got 5 events, the 3 roles, the 3 artifacts. If I can read it in less than an hour, surely it's got to be easy to understand. And yet it isn't. It says on the first page of the Scrum guide, of course, that it's simple to understand and difficult to master, but that skips past a lot of people. And that's one of the challenges. When you think about the number of things that can go wrong and make it hard to be agile, it's immense. And the Wheel of Pain is a way of understanding what are those sources of pain that might help you as a team anticipate them and predict them and then do something about them. It's really that simple, but it's based on quite a lot of research and quite a lot of evolution. So I've built this model over a number of years and I'm starting to get some really good value from it. So that's why I wanted to share it with you. So we all know Agile is really hard. What is it that makes it hard? Well, let's have a look at the things that make it difficult, and then we can see if any of them appear in our team or in our environment, and then we can decide what to do about them. And of course, if we struggle to do Scrum easily, then surely it's no surprise that when we try to scale that up into less or safe or Scrum at scale or Nexus, that's going to be hard. In fact, it's going to be harder, especially when we put into scaled Agile teams people that haven't even got the experience of doing simple single team Scrum really well. So there's a whole set of things that can cause us challenges, and the Wheel of Pain is really about helping us understand them. So what is a Wheel of Pain? It's a wheel, and it's a wheel that has 22 different potential sources of pain that are going to make it difficult for our team to be agile. Or maybe they're going to make it easy for us to be agile. So we score it from 0 in the middle to 5 at the outside, where 0 says, actually, do you know what? This factor makes it really easy for us to be an agile team. So for example, team size. If I've got a team of 5, that's a great team size for Agile. I might score that as 0. If I've got a team of 19, that's a lot harder. I might score that a 4 or 5. And then what I can do is look at where my hotspots are on my wheel, and I can decide whether or not that's something I want to address, to do something about. And it might be I don't. It might be I just accept it. So for example, I was in a team with just me and one other person. So we scored quite high on the team size. 2 is not a great size for a team, but we weren't going to do anything about it. So it's useful to know that might make it difficult to be agile, but actually that's just the way it is, so we'll carry on. So let's spend a little bit of time looking through the different sections and understand a bit more about them. So I'll just briefly spin through the wheel, give you a flavour of what it's about, and then maybe there'll be a more in-depth thing later, or perhaps you can work it out for yourself. It's not that hard, and actually in the template pack we've got some guidance on exactly what those factors are at the back. In terms of how you do this, it's good as a workshop. I've actually got laminated versions of these that I use, and they're quite good just to mark on, a bit like planning poker, where everybody scores what they think that factor is, and then we compare. If mostly people agree, that's great, lock it in. If I say a 3 and you say a 1 or 5, maybe we should have a conversation about it. It doesn't need to take an awful lot of time. There's only 22 things, and actually most of them you can probably make a decision on them really quite quickly. So let's walk through those things, 5 areas, about 22 different factors, and understand a little bit more about them. Let's start with the team segment. What's the right size for my team? What about the skill levels they have? Have they done much Agile experience in the past? As a team, are they mature? Have they worked together a long time? Would they be described as a high-performing team or not? And actually, what about their availability? Are they all full-time in my project, or are they perhaps juggling other things, juggling support tasks, juggling other work? So there's a whole set of things, even just within my team, that I can see could cause me problems. So understanding that is quite important, and that might cause me to, for example, look for extra team members, or maybe I'll structure my meetings in a different way. Because actually I've got quite a lot of levers within my team that I can pull in terms of timing of meetings, the length of sprints, what some of my definitions have done, all kinds of things like that. So the first sector is really about the team. The second section, that's all about the work. What is it the team is being asked to do? What is the nature of the product? How clear is it? Do we know what we're building and why and who it's for? How stable do we think the requirements are going to be? Do we anticipate there being a lot of change or not? What about the complexity? Is this a really simple thing that we can pretty much do in our sleep, or is it going to cause us problems? Do we maybe need to put in a lot more technology spikes, maybe some architecture work? What about that? And what about the non-functional requirements? Easy to forget, but really important. Performance, reliability, stability, accessibility, security, all those sorts of things. Are they things we've dealt with before? Do we understand how we're going to address them? Are we worried about any of them? And then the dependencies. Is my product completely standalone that I can manage all the dependencies within my self-organizing Agile team? That'd be great. But not always the case. Quite often I've got dependencies on other people, on other teams, on external legislators or accreditors, or on external inputs, or on sources of data. So what about those dependencies? Am I able to commit to sprint goals with those dependencies in place or not? What do I need to do about it? So that's all about the work. And there's loads of things around the work that can make it easier or harder to be agile. Sometimes it's about when it might be deployable. It's easy sometimes to say, oh, I want to be putting my product in front of users, but if they can't use it, is that a challenge? So we worked on one project which was in line with a change in legislation. Now, we couldn't go live with the project until the law changed, but it was going to take quite a long time for that product to be delivered. So it's very hard to be iterative and incremental and get valuable feedback from users if the users can't use it for real because they're operating in a different legislative environment than the one the project will be deployed into when it goes live. And that actually caused some problems because the team were iterating quite happily but not getting the feedback. That's a different story. So what about those stakeholders then? Do we have a product owner? What about him or her? Are they empowered? Do they know what their job is? Have they been a product owner before? What's their experience of Agile? A big challenge for product owners is availability. Are they going to be there? And are they going to be there when you need them? And how many other products are they product owner for? And how many stakeholders do you have? If you've got just the product owner, that's great, but as we learned in the stakeholder map or the meet the neighbours, sometimes other people care about your project, and sometimes that means you've got to care about them. The more stakeholders you have, the more chances you've got people coming to disrupt your project, especially if those stakeholders think they can control what you do or how you do it or when you do it, and don't respect the role of the product owner, for example. The next set of factors is all around the environment. Some of these are easier to control than others, but it's important to understand them all. What about the geography, the geographic distribution? Are people all in an office or not? Are they all remote? Are they in different time zones? Can they get to each other? Have we got the right collaboration tools? If we are remote, can we collaborate properly? Do we have the right bandwidth in everybody's homes? All those sorts of things. What about organisational constraints? Is the organisation depending on us to do a particular thing or to use a particular technology or to operate in a particular way? And then there's regulatory constraints or security constraints or legal constraints. Are they going to change what you need to do? Do you have to place your product somewhere for approval before you can go live with it? How does that work if you're trying to be doing DevOps? Security on its own is a decent category to have because it's such a big space. Do we understand the security requirements? Do we understand who allows the product to be used? Does it get signed off by somebody? Do we need to put in protections? What about audit and accounting? All those sorts of things. And then what about our tools and infrastructure? Do we have them? Are they there? Do we have the right things? Do we need to buy licenses? Do we need to get desks? Have we got the right chairs? All those sorts of things. And finally, the section on culture. Arguably the most important because it's very easy for a culture of an organisation to really knock an Agile team sideways. And it's not just a single thing culture. We've got a culture inside our team. We've got a culture in our stakeholders, and that might be the same culture as the team, but it might not. Especially if your stakeholders have come from a traditional project delivery background, they will have a very different idea perhaps on what the project roadmap is or what milestones are or what they expect to get. And then there's the culture of the organisation, and again that can be different from the stakeholders. We can have a little bubble of really empowered, enlightened Agile stakeholders around our Agile team, but if they're in an organisation that is inherently obstructing Agile ways of working or doesn't really have the right mindset and they're much more insistent on traditional upfront design and certainty of delivery dates and milestones and things, that's going to cause you some problems. And then even if the organisation thinks it's Agile, and some do, they haven't all got rid of all the processes and the governance that might be a throwback to how they were when they were less Agile. So the governance can cause you problems, especially things like reporting lines. If you're expected to report into a monthly board, then that can cause you some problems, especially if your sprints aren't lined up on the month, and probably you wouldn't want a sprint to be a month. So there's a whole set of things around the culture that might cause you some problems. So with this model, spin through those 22 things, understand if they're going to cause you problems or not, and if you think they are there things you can do about them or not? And it might just be a bunch of stuff that you highlight to your stakeholders and say, do you know what, we really think we're going to struggle because we haven't got the tech and we're all distributed now. But let's just do what we can. And expect that what might happen is we might take a bit longer to deliver our first version. So that's the Wheel of Pain. We could talk a lot more about that, but it's a bit of an overview and hopefully you get the gist of it. I hope you find it useful and join me next time on Launching Agile Projects as we explore another Inception Deck artifact in a bit more detail. Bye now.